Welcome, families. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Thanks for joining us tonight. Welcome, families. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started shortly. For those of us just joining, welcome. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Welcome, families. If you're just joining us, we'll get started in just a minute or so. Welcome, families. For those of you just joining us, we'll get started in just a minute. Welcome, families. For those of you just joining us, we'll get started shortly. All right, families, let's go ahead and get started. Good evening and welcome to Navigating Academics, part of our family webinar series. I'm Camille Clark and I'm the Associate Director for Family Engagement. As always, I want to thank you for coming out tonight and for supporting our Eagles. Joining us on the call tonight are Dr. Jimmy Ellis, the Associate Dean of Undergraduate Education, and Julia Gibson, who is our Digital Content Coordinator for the Division of Student Affairs, and she's here to help us with tech. So tonight's webinar will focus on the undergraduate academic experience, including where your students are at currently, what's next, what's available at AU to help them thrive, and what you can do to help your Eagles succeed as parents and families. As the Associate Dean of Undergraduate Education, Dr. Ellis supports colleagues working in first-year advising, AU Experience, the Student Athlete Support Program, academic support, academic coaching, and quantitative support. Additionally, he develops and monitors departmental activities designed to maximize undergraduate student retention and graduation. Your students may also revere him as a local celebrity, as he is always very well received in his Taking Flight presentation during new student orientation. So before I toss it over to Jimmy, I do have a couple of notes for you. The first is that our webinar is being recorded and I will share the recording with you just as soon as it's available. The second is that we will reserve time toward the end of the webinar for Q&A, and you are welcome at any time to ask the question using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And with that, I'm gonna let Jimmy take it away.
Hi, everybody. It's Jimmy Ellis, Associate Dean of Undergraduate Education. Happy to be here today. I have been at AU since 2011, and I have a kindergartner myself right now, a kindergartner and third grader, but I've realized that for a lot of you in the room, the students that we're talking about today were probably in kindergarten, first grade when I started at AU. So that's something really interesting. In fact, over the summer when I was talking to them, I said that in some ways I've been working at making AU as good a place as possible for them since they started kindergarten, for that entire 12-year period. I've been at AU, like I said, since 2011. Prior to that, with a room like this, I always like to share some of the places that I've been. I was born in Seoul, South Korea, and I moved around quite a bit. My dad was in the military. And so it was Korea, Florida, Korea, South Carolina, North Carolina, Hawaii, Florida, and then Colorado, and then DC. So hopefully I covered some of maybe where you're from regionally and all that kind of stuff, but nevertheless, it's great to be with you on this webinar tonight. Like Camille mentioned, I want to just run through a few things that are very in the moment, meaning what are the things your students are encountering now? What are things for you to be aware of as you're working with your students, and what to look forward to in the semester to come. Parts of this presentation are going to focus more on the first year student experience. The bulk of the folks on this call are first year students, and often first year families have the most questions. And so this is a universal look at navigating academics, but there are parts of it that'll be more tailored to the first year. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Want to get right into it. Let's talk about the advising and registration timeline that your students have been encountering this semester. In October, the very beginning of October, in fact, the course schedule for the spring semester released and was available online. And students, as soon as that dropped, were checking out that schedule, starting to map out their plans for the spring. I've been pretty impressed with their attentiveness across the board. Some of the skills that they developed in the summer about how to use these systems really came into play. And as I have scanned and checked planners on Eagle Service, I'm seeing a lot of students that have already scheduled or pre-planned their schedules for the spring and are waiting to press submit and enter. Now, I have to remind you, if you could help me remind students of a simple thing, just planning something on their Eagle service is not the same as registering for it. And so they must be aware of their registration date and time and go in and press that button in order to register for courses. During the summer, we had a few students that thought they were all set and good, but then they weren't. And they came to realize that a month or two later that they hadn't registered, and we had to scramble. That's typically a mistake that folks only make once, but I do want to make sure that y'all are aware of that. November is when students can register for courses using Eagle Service. And in fact, I say November, and this is where I'm biased towards the first year students. Most first year students are going to be registering the bulk of them on November 7th and 8th, some earlier than that. The registration dates that apply to your student are available online, and I think my colleagues here can plop those into the chat at some point if that's helpful. The reality is that registration actually starts tomorrow for undergraduate students, but those are students that have the most credits completed at the university. We're talking 90 plus credits. These are our seniors and above. But the bulk of our students, the families that are on this call, your students are going to be registering in November. Like I said, at this point, most of your students have prepared their planned courses. They have backups ahead of time. And now is a good time, though, to check in with your students and make sure that they have that in play. And if they need to, they can contact and consult their academic advisor in order to make that happen. I want to advise everybody on this call of a key moment, though, okay? I want all continuing students, all returning students, everyone that's enrolled right now to be registered for courses, if possible, by November 9th. Now, the reason why November 9th is such a key date is that's when it's not a lot of students, but students that are going to be brand new to the university, new spring admits, new transfer students. That's the day when those students can register for courses as well. And so for us, we want our students to be engaged and active and use their priority registration time, whether it be November 2nd, 3rd, 7th, 8th, whatever it might be. And like I said, the stakes aren't so high. There's not a lot of those students that are brand new in spring, but why not take advantage of the benefit of being able to register just ahead of a group of students is my recommendation. Looking ahead to January and March, just to give you a sense, it's my advice that students start consulting with their advisor about their next fall courses and also their summer courses, to be honest with you, during January and March. January is probably rushing it, ease into the semester, but February, March, before it gets too busy, check in with the academic advisors, start planning for summer and fall. Registration dates and times will be available in Eagle Service closer to March. If I could wave a magic wand, I would encourage students to seek out academic advising not just in the couple weeks before they register for classes. Our academic advising force is a year-round operation, but for some reason, and well, I know why, that's when students are thinking about it, they feel the most pressure, that they seek out academic advising right around the window when they can register. There's not that many people on this call, about 67 families. If every one of y'all can encourage your students to get proactive about that, kind of in that February, March period, not wait till April, not wait till later, I think that'd be good advice. You'll catch advisors in a less busy time. You'll also catch advisors when they have the best kinds of appointments available. Right now, academic advisors have to prioritize efficiency and moving quickly through appointments. Sometimes appointments right now are just drop-ins. They're just 10 minutes. They're trying to move through a lot of students quickly. That's the maximized number of students that we can see, but it's not the best advising experience. And in fact, if your student only sees advisors during this time, they might have a negative opinion about academic advising because of the nature of that sort of interaction. If you hear that feedback from your students, encourage them to get into that January to March window for the next period, and they'll have a lot better experience. I can guarantee it. And then finally, through June and August, of course, there's registration that happens in the March and April period. But June and August, this is for rising sophomores. What I wanted to mention here is that during that time, there's going to be tons of time for in-depth conversations and planning with major advisors. Now, the way that the advising system works at AU is that in the first year, students are with their first year advisor, but then on June 1st, this upcoming June 1st, they switch to their major advisor. I'll talk more about that here in a few slides, but something to keep in mind is the reason why I mentioned this here is that especially for first year students, they can be very preoccupied right now of wanting to set up a long-term or 4-year plan. For us, we recommend that students keep a narrower look at advising and try to focus on the spring and the fall to come, understanding that over the course of the spring and definitely into the summer, that's when they could spend some heavy and extensive time making those refinements and long-term plans for the future. A lot of what they're encountering in their first year is going to be about the AU core, their writing requirements, their math requirements, the AUX courses, things of that nature. And some of that stuff just moves forward pretty predictably. And so let's take advantage of that, focus on those basics, and then look to a little bit later in the academic year to talk more long-term planning and resources. I wanted to just spend a minute on this next slide. This is just an FYI, kind of a sneak peek into AUX. I've had questions from families before come up that says, hey, in AUX, do you all talk about important things like registration and getting ready to register and all that kind of stuff? And this is just to check a box to say, hey, yes, we do. In week 6 of the course, you see what we talk about. How do I plan for next semester in a way that incorporates my requirements and interests and et cetera? The why of why we do that, what they can expect to come from it. This is one of our most popular classes for AUX, and the instructor advisors, the first year advisors that teach these sections do a really great job acclimating students to what to expect and set them up in order for them to be prepared to register for the spring. And in fact, I think this is why when I did that scan of everyone's pre-planning that I saw so many students already have a lot of work done already. Wanted to show you another screenshot. This is from within Eagle Service. This is their registration date and time. Every student knows how to log into Eagle Service, and then when they go to their advising part of Eagle Service, right when they log in, they go to the spring 2024 semester. It's listed there in a big blue bar right across the screen. And so for this student here, the student's registration period for spring 2024 begins on November 7th at 1:45 p.m. And so that'll be listed there for them. So if they're unsure about when they register, encourage them to navigate to Eagle Service, go to the advising part of the website, and then they'll see it there. This is a student here. If you look down the page a little bit, they've planned 22 credits. So what does that say to me? This is a student that obviously won't be taking that much. Why? Most of our students are going to be between 14.5 and 16.5 credits. They can take as many as 17.5 credits in their first in the spring. But this is a student that obviously has some backups on there, so in addition to the ones they think they're going to get, they put some backups so they'll be ready to pivot to those if courses that they want to take have filled by the time that they register. So I think that student is going to be ready to go. All right. On the topic of registration, I want to provide some registration resources. These resources are all housed on the first year advising registration page, and they're worth checking out for your student. Again, a lot of them were directed here, shown these resources during their AUS experience. And then for students that are in the sophomore year and beyond, these are resources that they've encountered in previous years, and a lot of them refer back to them. The registration resource page is housed on the first year advising website, but it's actually applicable to any kind of student, especially if you look on the bottom of that green box that I have there. There's graduation planning documents, and these links, once they click on that resource, provides 4-year plans, suggested plans, recommended sequences of courses for students to take, and it's a really great resource for them to examine. Unfortunately, if you were to access this and try to get into it, it does require an AU username and password, and so it's a student restricted resource. But nevertheless, if your students are asking, hey, I don't know what to take, I'm confused at what to do, show them this resource and have them log in, and it's all going to unfold in front of them. I have been working with several students this week. One of our advisors is on a bit of unexpected leave, and so I've stepped in. And I've used these resources repeatedly in order to help students, and it's been very straightforward and very clarifying as they're going through things. Especially for our first year families, I wanted to also give the link to our first year advising appointments. There you'll see a list of all of our first year academic advisors. And then your student can see their academic advisor and then schedule an appointment with them. And this week, advisors will have a lot of availability to meet with students this week and next to help them make sure that they get the guidance they need in advance of registering. Sometimes families will ask me, is it required that my student sees their academic advisor this week? Goes back to my earlier point. It's not required. And in fact, if the student paid close attention during that week 6, they probably have a planned schedule already and good to go. And in fact, if they met with their advisor earlier than just in the last couple of weeks, they already may be prepared as well. Also, sometimes what students have to take can be very self-explanatory, especially if they use their resource as well. And so we don't have a requirement that students must meet with their advisor in order to register. However, students certainly are welcome to, and that availability is available here for first year students. Now, for students that are in the second year and beyond, they're already very well accustomed to how to reach and connect with their advisor. They'll go through their academic advising and units, and each one of those websites will have links on how to set up an advising appointment. Remember, during this time period, though, right now that we're in, a lot of our colleagues in advising units are going to be having more of those drop-in style advising appointments, those quick advising appointments, and just to be aware that that's the nature of the advising appointment at this time. All right. This is just another screenshot. I wanted to show you that when students are clicking this advising resources SharePoint, the graduation planning documents, what will they see? They'll see this page that pops up. And then every one of our 6 academic units has their version of this tile and their graduation plans. And behind each one of these links is a 4-year graduation plan of recommended courses to take in sequence. And so I just wanted to kind of give you a behind the scenes, because since y'all can't log in, I want to give you a little bit of preview of what you might expect behind there. Okay. All right. Some key dates for fall 2023. First of all, I wanted to say that right now advising teams are 100% focused on spring registration only for the next few weeks. Students will be disappointed if they say, hey, I want to talk about my dreams for my next career, at this point, because that's not the focus right now. But heading into the middle of November into December, that's when advising appointments can be more of that fuller and richer variety. I wanted to point out that where are we in the term? We are in week 9 of 15 of the fall term. I believe that this is the start of the hardest part of the entire year. Why? Because for our first year students, it's their first term at AU. Also, for all students, the fall term is tough. Oftentimes, students will see Thanksgiving or that week of fall break as a sort of halfway point, or you're almost there. It is not a halfway point at all. It is so deep into the semester that it is a real marathon to get to that week in November. So right now, students feel like it's right around the corner, but it's not. You can look at the calendar yourself. There's still 3 or 4 more weeks away. And so this is a grind. This is when it starts to be a real grind for our students. Students are going to tell you that they're in a constant state of papers being due, exams upcoming, speeches they have to get ready for, presentations they're putting together. It is going to be nonstop from now until probably after they return from fall break. I want to remind you, though, if you have had previous students go to college, if you went to college yourself, that this is the start of the decades-old surge to the finish line that generations of college students have encountered, struggled through, worked really hard just in time, and more often than not, do better than they thought. I can say this because this was always me. I never thought I was going to make it as a college student, right, at this point in the semester. And if you reflect on your college experience, I bet you have some of those similar memories. Your students are encountering that same sort of thing. I just want you to encourage them that they can do this. They have what it takes. If you think about it, most of your students are going to be in anywhere between 4 and 6 courses. So even the amount of courses that they're working on are something they're familiar with. They often took 6 to 8 courses, in high school. And so even the amount of courses they're encountering, it's even a little bit reduced. Students will often tell you that they're very busy, they don't have any time, but you've done the math before, right? How many hours are in a week? How many hours do you want them to sleep? There's still, 100 hours or more to be able to work on academics and things of that nature. And so they do have the time, but they feel very stressed right now, and it's going to feel unrelenting. When you get them back in November, if you see them, or when you get them back in December, they'll have been through a lot. They're going to be exhausted and tired. They might be worn out, but know that they can do it. We've all done it, right? We've been there before. Other things to keep in mind is that the next week, end of next week, Friday, November 3rd, is the last day to withdraw from a course. And it's important to remember that what withdrawal is that we're past the period, way past the period where students can drop a course. Now, if a student wants to no longer take a course, to get out of taking the course, the only option is to withdraw. Now, what withdraw does is that there's a formal notation on the transcript of a W that says that this course was attempted but not completed, but then no other grade is provided. It's a withdrawal. Now, withdrawal is something that often comes onto students' minds, especially when they feel uneasy or uncertain about their ability to finish the course or do well in the course. It's important to remember, though, that students have to be, or most students have to be above 12 credits for full-time enrollment. And full-time enrollment is, of course, important on its own merits to stay on track and in progress. It's also important for things like housing assignments on campus. If you're receiving financial aid as a family, that's tied to full-time enrollment. And so flexibility to be able to withdraw or earlier drop below 12 credits is limited based on some of those factors. I would say at this point, a withdrawal is a pretty serious thing to do. And it's one that I would highly recommend that a student consult with an academic advisor before doing. Email, drop in an appointment, please consult with an advisor in that moment. Now, I also want to relieve students during this time when I talk to them of feeling like they need to withdraw from a course, especially if they have a B in a course that they wanted an A. Sometimes you earn a B, that's what it took. That's what it was. So it's not only when students are really struggling or having a hard time. We'll have students that'll stress themselves out and be so worked up that they're unsure if they're going to get a B in a course, and so therefore they think they should withdraw. That's not a good reason to withdraw. That's a reason to say, hey, I still have 6 weeks to try to reach the goal that I'm looking for in the class, and also know that, hey, it's okay given the effort I put in, what was expected to get an A, to get a B, to get a C. Like this is all part of the experience. And then you can count on, the students can count on us in the advising community, and for me personally, to be able to work and help students to advance beyond, what they get in that first semester. So all this to say is that this is an important day as an option, but it's one that I think that students have to consider very seriously. And I will tell you that it's one that many students don't take. It's not something that people rush to the gates in order to do this, but it is kind of a formal day when it's permitted, and after that, it's not permitted. Okay, just something to keep in mind. And then I wanted to mention a few other things, that there's the last day of fall classes is December 8th, and that finals are going to run from December 11th to 16th, and the final exam schedule is available on their syllabus and also online, on the online schedule. Okay. All right. Wanted to spend some time on first year students, just a bit. Whether your students realize it or not, the final AUX1 course, the Core 186, their one credit course that they're in, the last class session of that course is next week. Now, for some students with like I think on Monday, it goes to the following Monday, but within the next week, they're going to be done with AUX1. The reason I want to highlight that is that during this crunch time, these last 5 weeks, they are now going to be short and lessened by one class. This class is done, move on. And then when we think about that time and availability and being able to prioritize the work they want to get done, this allows them to do that. So Core 196 AUX1 is finished within the next week. The last class is next week. Just a reminder that, like I said earlier, that students work with first year advisors for fall 2023 registration. That's done. For spring 2023, did I say 24? Hope I did. Oh, man. Okay, so I did spring 24. That's good. That's in progress. And then fall 2024 registration, and that's upcoming. Okay, so they work with their first year advisor for fall 23, spring 24. And wait a minute. Can I be clever here? Yes, fall 2024 course registration. There you go. Okay. I also wanted to highlight, and I want you to have this as a possible referral to your student, is that first year advising this year has an associate director of first year advising directly tied to each school and college. This is available on our website, but it's also available here. And I just want you to have this colleague's name, because if your student ever feels stuck, or they're like, shoot, I'm not sure if I'm getting exactly the right look at advising with my advisor, or I feel like I don't have all my questions answered, or I'm having a hard time getting a hold of my advisor, an option would be to contact this associate director. Why? They supervise that team that works with students that are affiliated with that academic unit, and they're expert and available and accountable to students for what they need. And so if your student's encountering some kind of challenge, no matter kind of what it is, and there's not a clear pathway forward, you can always count on me as a resource, obviously, and I'll share my information with you. I'm always happy to get a student unstuck. But if it's about advising, consider reaching out to one of these associate directors, and they could be of assistance to your student. Now, when I said consider reaching out, consider having your student reach out to one of these associate directors, and they can definitely help out with that. Dr. Arthur Stallworth usually works with their College of Arts and Sciences, but he's out for a little bit of leave. And so I can be the contact for the short term. And so consider me the contact for CAS. And then I wanted to mention that students progress their school college advising unit on June 1st, 2024. AU does have that dual advising model, where in the first year we have a specialized advising model for first year students. And then from the second year on, or that summer after their first year on, they're with the school college advisors. Ahead of that time, I just wanted to let you know that there'll be numerous opportunities presented to students to engage with their academic unit and advising teams. There'll be open houses, events, faculty meetups, etc. These associate directors will get information out to students. Their advisors will get information out to their students. If your student is interested and invested in wanting to connect with their new home from the summer on, they're going to have many opportunities to do that in the spring. I'll also guide them along that path with communications and coordination that I'll lead from my end. And so they'll be very well supported as they progress from first year advising into the school college advising on June 1st. Okay. All right. I wanted to switch gears a little bit and just provide a little bit of insight into what are some things that your students might be expecting as they keep progressing past the first year and beyond. One is major declaration. Every student that comes to AU has an intended major. And in fact, students have an intended major all the way through their first year. One of the first things that they can do once they progress to the school college advising unit in the summer is to declare their major officially. They can also talk about adding a minor at that time. All that kind of stuff happens after the first year. And so your second year student, they probably already done this, but for your first year student, it's something for them to look forward to in the summer to formally declare their major. Undergraduate research opportunities abound. A great way to get started with that is to start a conversation with their academic advisor. They could have a nice segue into various different opportunities, and so we can be a good conduit for that. Students start thinking about study abroad opportunities if they aren't already involved in some. Some of our first year students are involved in some AU abroad opportunities in the first year with our Cornerstone and in UK and in Madrid. And so there's a specialized programs. You're either already in them or you're not. But for most other students, they start thinking about study abroad heading into their second year and beyond. The most frequent time that students will study abroad is during their junior year. And something for families to think about is that for some reason, students, I think, bias towards doing study abroad in springs. We don't give that guidance, but we see that students often study abroad in spring. Know that fall is available and the programs are just robust. In fact, they might be even less subscribed during the fall. And so consider fall for study abroad. And so as you hear your student talking about, I'm going to study abroad in spring, say, hey, why not fall? It doesn't have to be that way. And so just to kind of keep that in mind. There's just this magnetic pull to spring. I can't crack it. Fall is just as good as spring. And then, of course, internship exploration. You know, a lot of your students have getting out in DC in the community on their mind. They're asking questions. They're going to the Career Center. They're taking skills assessments, different inventories. If your student is still kind of in that evaluation stage of what might I be good at, what are my skills at, all that kind of stuff, the Career Center is an excellent resource for that. They have a whole range of different skills assessments and different ways and tools in order to get a sense of that. Their academic advisor is also a good person to talk to. If they have these interests, do you have any ideas of ways that I can connect it, things that I can explore? As a general rule, we don't persuade students to do much when it comes to actual career or internship in their first year. Now, there are some exceptions. Some are unavoidable or irresistible, where the students can't help but do them. Other students are part of specialized programs like Cornerstone DC, which has an internship component. But for the most part, we're encouraging students to really set a foundation at AU, socially, academically, and with that stability and platform and kind of home base, then they can really hit the ground running heading to the second year and beyond. But it's not something we dissuade necessarily. And we definitely want students to definitely be working on inventories, understanding of their interests, and getting a game plan together, how they might approach it heading into the next academic year. Now, each of these kinds of things, especially the study abroad and the internship exploration, undergraduate research, it's going to be important for yours to remind your student to not distract themselves with this stuff right now. This is stuff that you want to explore and do during lulls and breaks and calmer periods of the academic year. It is a kind of a red, what do you call it? A red flag for me if a student's getting hyped up about wanting to explore internships right now, because then I'm curious about avoidance. Are they avoiding focusing on their academics? Are they avoiding some of the time management stuff they do, or trying to organize a paper to get set up for academic success? This time of year, I think you want to be warm to these conversations and interests from your students, but also be able to divert them, pivot them back to academics, because we are in that highly intensive academic period. And so it's hard for me sometimes to resist getting caught up with their interests because they're so enthusiastic about it, but they got to buckle down and think about academics because it's in a real tough spot right now for them. Also, there's a few things I just want to describe. You know, what's next for your students? What can you expect? Well, let's talk about some common concerns. You know, for first year students and for second year students, what we find is that what rises to the top when I do surveying of students are a few things, just in different orders, depending if they're in their first year or second year or second or third year, really. One is like a mild homesickness, not extreme, like they're not like really struggling and can't not be home, but they do miss some of the comforts of home. They miss friends, they miss family, they miss familiarity. There's mild homesickness. There's anxiety about tests. They're struggling in courses. And in fact, I have a data point here where, especially in students' first semesters, whether it's new first-year students or new transfer students, about 60% of students are already struggling in a course after just 5 weeks at AU. And when I dig into the numbers, it's about 40% of students that are struggling in 2 or more. And that's their self-assessment of them feeling like they're struggling. And so this is normal and students work through it. There's some students and families that are just the constant question about the financial concern and worry of, is this the right choice? Do we have a nice plan and a good plan to make sure that we can get through the experience? Is the value right? There's questioning about that happens commonly. And then always students are having a back and forth, the feeling socially connected, feeling excluded, feeling connected, feeling excluded. It just kind of depends on where they are, who they're around, and kind of what their mindset is, but social connection is on the mind. Here are the ratings for first year students. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as in the order in which we see them most prevalent. For year 2 and beyond, it switches a little bit. The first 2 remain the same. The social connection actually pops a little bit for year 2 students. What we find there is that some of the ease and routine and effort that the university and the students put out to be socially connected, that dissipates and maybe gets taken for granted in the second year. And so that becomes a higher order concern. It's surprising because students certainly are more socially connected in their second year, but their feeling about being socially connected can sometimes wane, maybe just in comparison in the enthusiasm they see that first year students have, and et cetera. And so that's something they work through. I also want you to know that a lot of our students consider changing their major. This is pretty common. In fact, when I look at the numbers for first year students, about 20% of students change their major heading into their second year. And this is already after there's a little bit of switching in the summer before they arrive. Oh, I applied as this. I now want to be this. So it's after that kind of formal decision heading into and enrolling of making an adjustment. Even after that, students are changing. 1 out of 5 students are changing their major heading into their second year. And in fact, when I look at from when they started to what they graduated, about 40% of students who graduate at AU do so in a different major than when they started at AU. And so all that to say is that this is normal. Students are doing this all the time. I myself would have been in this category as an undergraduate student. One of the reasons why we organize first year advising like we do is to allow students a lot of flexibility to be able to shift and switch without having to worry about being in one department or another. That intended major structure allows us to flow students back and forth pretty easily. And so that helps there. And in the last segment here, I wanted to point maybe a little bit into the future. We are involved in a survey project where we ask students alongside other institutions across the country and institutions that are like ours. We ask seniors on this survey a few questions. And so I'm going to show you the percentage of seniors who very often are often the highest categories, combined ideas from different courses when completing assignments. When we asked seniors this, 80% of students said that they did that in their experience. And this was about 10 points higher than other private research-intensive institutions like ours. We also asked students, where did they connect their learning to societal problems or issues? This was 79% at our institution, about 17 points higher than other private research-intensive universities. And then we asked students if they included if their learning included diverse perspectives in course discussions and assignments, and this was almost 70%, and that was 14 points higher. And so we spent a lot of time talking about first year students, second year students, and I just wanted to give you a quick peek into down the road what seniors are saying after they go through the experience that your students are currently in now. And at least on one dimension, this high quality learning in comparison to our peers, our students are really encountering at a higher rate some of these high quality learning experiences that we would want them to have in college. All right. My final pivot here is going to be towards some academic supports that I want to mention. And here I call it staying on track. What are different things that your students can engage with that can help them academically? I'm going to run through a few options. The first is supplemental instruction. Now, students either have this in their class already or they don't. what we did is we identified courses in which have been historically challenging or students had the hardest time getting through. And then in those courses, we work with a faculty member to embed a tutor, a SI leader, within the course. They take the course with the student, so they're in class when the student is in class, and they lead a weekly group review session based on the guidance of the faculty member. If your student is in a class that has supplemental instruction, it's definitely something worth pursuing and taking part in. The reason why I put this into place is that we were kind of tired of students having the choice to go to tutoring or not. And what we wanted to have happen is the students had to literally walk by a tutor in order to leave a class, is basically what the thought process for our most challenging courses. And so we were able to implement that idea with this. If you want to see which courses are available that have SI, the QR code will take you there. Also, this is easily searchable on Google, just academic support, AU, supplemental instruction, and you can find the website that way as well. The next one I wanted to point out was the Writing Center. This is one-on-one tutoring appointments with the writing consultants. These are peer-to-peer services to help students interpret assignments and prompts, receive feedback on writing, understand the conventions of academic writing. So much of what your students are going to be working on is academic writing. And more so than even like discipline-specific tutoring, they are going to be, having to generate a lot of written work. The good thing about the Writing Center, what I admire about them, is that they have great availability. They really work to be overstaffed. And so if you go on this website, you can find appointments there. These appointments are up to 45 minutes long, and they are a great way for students to connect with a peer to guide them through academic writing. Now, when I say peer, the majority of writing consultants are actually graduate students. So that's a really nice help and benefit for undergraduate students. These are folks that have been through an undergraduate writing experience, or challenged and pushed to write at a high level as graduate students, and they also serve as writing consultants to their undergraduate peers. The next resource I want to share is our quantitative support, and there's two main versions of that. There's the Math and Stat Lab, which is located in our Don Myers building on East Campus. Now, our campus is pretty small. That's just across the street on Nebraska Hall, across Nebraska, heading into the other side of campus. It's easily walkable from anywhere. They have drop-in advising or drop-in academic support in the Don Myers building in room 103. And you see the coverage of courses that we have there. These are all math and stat courses that are equivalent to Calculus 2 or intermediate stats or biostats. And we also can help, not that it applies here, to introductory grad courses and stats. In addition, once they're in that space, they'll learn of communal office hours sponsored by math and stat department faculty and others. Students really enjoy that. Those are very well attended, both of these services. And then if your student is using statistical software for any of their classes, they can get support with that as well. And they would use that website there in order to access that. Okay. And then I have two more to go on here. One is peer-assisted student support. This is our PASS program. Consider this our tutoring lab, but there's not a lab, not yet anyway. The good thing about all these support services I've just described is that in January 2024, they go from being kind of distributed all over campus to being centrally located right next to the student center. They'll get information about this, but it's part of our new student thriving complex that all of academic support is going to be co-located. So that's pretty exciting for this group of students. But nevertheless, what I wanted to emphasize here is that this is this discipline-specific tutoring. Here we provide one-on-one tutoring support for students in specific areas. It includes accounting, biology, chemistry, computer science, economics, finance, government, psychology, and more. If we don't offer one-on-one tutoring for a particular course or discipline, students can go to our website and request a tutor. And they can do that all the way up until, I think, the first or second week in November. And then we'll look to try to find a tutor for them. Now, everything that I've described so far, including this, it's included with what it means to be an AU student. And so it's included in the tuition and fees. It's certainly not free, right? The tuitions and fees exist, but there's no additional fee for any of these services. These are offered to students already. And then the last thing is academic coaching. Academic coaching is one-on-one sessions with a professional academic coach to support students, not with content, like discipline specific, not about a subject or writing or about quantitative support, but instead these professional staff members really are experts in helping students become really good learners. Some of the things that students love working with academic coaches about are time management, task initiation, task prioritization, how to motivate themselves to complete large projects, how to break down reading assignments, all of those different kind of skills that they need in order to be a really effective learner, academic coaches can assist with. As a result, academic coaching is pretty popular. It's also not something that is an emergency service. So when students encounter it and they go to set up an appointment, you might see that appointments are available in a week's time or 2 weeks' time. I say just take advantage of it. This is kind of good, nutritious academic behavior for them to undertake. And whether it's now or 2 weeks from now when they can get an appointment, I think it's worth doing. I always say that 30 minutes with academic coach is some of the kind of minute by minute, the best time spent on our campus. And so if your student is like, yeah, I love some help with time management, things of that nature, academic coaching is definitely a great resource to encourage them to explore. But like I said, it is popular. And it might be a bit of a wait, a 1 to 2 week wait in order to get into an appointment. And with academic coaching, sometimes students want to do it every week, but it's hard to get that a level of attention because we don't have that many academic coaches. And so students are welcome to come as often as they like, as often as once a week. But in reality, that's hard to make happen because of that delay in when they get set up appointments. So I just want to make the resource available, but also some expectations about availability. There's also part of this team that if your student does end up having a semester that they're looking to recover from, you know, they didn't perform as well as they did, there's a segment of this team that only works with students that are in academic recovery, trying to get their GPAs above a certain threshold, that are looking to rebound. And those have a specialized inroads into academic coaching. And so we have a segment of this team that works specifically with students that are in that situation. But when you set up an appointment, just out of the blue for our universal academic coaching, it'll be just with a standard everyday academic coach. Okay. So partnering with families, I'm just going to end with a few slides here. Like, how can you help? I guess something that you can do maybe better than anyone else is just to remind students about some basic needs that they often forget when they're busy. Drink water, eat something, sleep more, go outside, move their body. Again, don't let them trick you to thinking that they don't have time to do this. I mean, you can do the math. There is time in their schedule to do this and availability. They just have to prioritize. It's also hard sometimes for students to realize that this investment will pay off, but it definitely does. I also know that students struggle with it. You know, I show you 2 graphs here. I ask students every year, are you active as you'd like to be? And only about 34 to 36% of students answer affirmatively to that. And what I like about this question is it's as you'd like to be. You know, there's room to say, I'd like to be not active at all. And if that's the case, they would rate themselves highly, right? But this is students that are not meeting up to their expectation of what they wanted. And you know your students, you know that they're at their best when they're moving around, they're doing the things that they love, they're getting outside, they're taking walks, those kind of things. And you know they really struggle when they hunker down, they don't come up for air, all that kind of stuff. And so just to show you that a lot of students aren't doing that. That's a pretty low number. On a graph like this, I show you the 36, but what's not pictured there is the 64%. The 64% of students that are saying that they are not as active as they'd like to be. And so that's something to remind students about. And then getting enough sleep. When I work with students, I could tell they haven't had enough sleep. And in fact, when I asked students, are you getting enough sleep? Only 28% of students this past year said that they were getting enough sleep. And again, that's a low number. And I think about that 72% of students. What an opportunity for us to try to influence behavior. And what's enough sleep? I'm not sure what it is for students, but can it be 6 hours, 7 hours? Could that go a long way? It certainly could, you know, at where they are developmentally and what they're trying to do. And so These are some basic things that will be, I think, comfortable coming from you to be able to tell them. And these are things that they often forget. They're not thinking to do these kind of things. And for you to say, hey, it's okay for you to get active, to go outside, to get sleep, that those are good investments, that might be the encouragement they need in order to make sure they can have a good next day, next week, and the rest of the semester. So those are like kind of very practical, basic needs type stuff. And then I'll end with one last slide that's a little bit bigger picture. What are things that you can do to help? One is encourage your student to initiate, build, and nurture relationships with AU faculty and staff best positioned to help them thrive. I'm kind of surprised by how many students say that they don't know their faculty members, or they don't know their academic advisor, or they don't know someone. I will tell you this, it's not for lack of effort on the other side to get them to come to office hours, to get them to come to advising appointments, and etc. So know that there's nothing about AU's approach to student service that says students have to fend for themselves and they have to come find us. Now, what is often a gap is their willingness to just take the one click to set up an appointment, or to make the one plan to go to an office hour. That's the gap. And so please encourage your student to initiate, build, and nurture relationships with faculty and staff. That is consistent. You can count on that. What's hard sometimes is socially with peers. You can't kind of count on that. That can be a crapshoot depending on kind of what your student is encountering and what their experiences are. That can be challenging, genuinely challenging. But finding someone at AU that can help them, that cares about them, that shouldn't be challenging. And in fact, I tell students, and you can tell them too, if they have led themselves to believe that there's no one there that can help them and help them thrive, you have me. You have me. Like email jellis@American, and I could be that conduit for them. And so don't let them convince you for a minute that they're alone, that no one's there, it's too hard, all that kind of stuff. We're here. And if they truly believe it, they always have me. So keep that in mind, okay? Something that I wish that I could, how you can help is support your student to embrace the discomfort as part of the learning process and the right spot for growth. I talked about this being the hardest part of their academic journey. They're kind of the least equipped, least skilled, and kind of most stressed they'll ever be during this period. They're going to feel uncomfortable. They are ready to push through it and then to be really proud of themselves at the end of it. But it's going to be hard all along the way. But if you can encourage them to embrace that discomfort, normalize it for them, and then flip it and say, hey, sounds like you're ready to take a step. You're ready to grow. I think that could be really useful. I would say learn about the useful resources for your students and how to make a good referral. That's why I sent those QR codes and links, and I know Camille and team will make this presentation available to you. Instead of just saying academic coaching, send them the link. Say click here, give them just that like elevated referral, elevated recommendation to kind of reduce some of the friction between taking a step and not. That's why I gave you the link to the first year advising appointments. They'll say, oh, I can't get a hold of my advisor. Have you looked on their You Can Book Me link, right? Which is the advising system that we offer. Did you see there? I happen to look and I see they have spots, that kind of thing. Or shoot, looks like they don't have spots. Well, I'll tell you what, contact the associate director of first year advising. They can help coordinate with you. Maybe something's going on with the advisor that you don't know about, but you can go to that associate director. What I want to do here is just kind of elevate your ability to make that high quality referral to your students. Never to do it for them, but to give them that tangible bridge to take action on their own. And that's something you can do. A little trick that somehow convinces students that I've done in the past to take action, especially when it comes to visiting faculty office hours, is I said, well, would it be helpful for me to tell you that instead of thinking of it as office hours, where the faculty are just monitoring their office, to call them student hours? What if we call them student hours? Could you see yourself in that space? That the hours were for you and not just for a faculty to be in their office? It's a little silly thing, but that has really helped students kind of reframe. Oh, shoot, yeah, like that's not an office hour where they just monitor their office. Like an office hour is made when students are there. So maybe it's a campaign I'll start on our campus actually, is that we should call faculty office hours student hours held by faculty. Maybe that'll help. Anyway, and the last thing is listen to and empower your student to take active steps when they need help. This helps build self-advocacy skills and are difference makers at AU and beyond. And so they're going to say they're encountering a lot of challenge and struggle, but know that I'm not the only person that acts and feels and believes like I do right here talking with you. This campus is full of people like me who care about students, that want to be there for them, that want to be available. And so here, like believe that. I would say really kind of take kind of great belief in that and be an advocate for all of us on our campus and say, hey, I know that we can get you in contact with someone that can help. And then if you know the right ideas and referrals, please do that. And if you don't know, you have the ultimate kind of shortcut, which is get them connected with me. I'm never going to be the one to help them to the end. Why? Because I'm not the expert in everything, but I could be that bridge between where they are and where they need to go. And so, but encourage them to take that step to reach out to me. And at this point, your students should have no kind of qualms whatsoever in emailing me and connecting with me. So if they need something in that moment, please have them connect with me. Now, I don't want them to use me as a shortcut and a crutch, but if they are immobilized and they don't know how to pivot and go, they always have me. But I hope I've convinced you that there's a whole campus of people that are really invested in your students being successful. And what I would like to ask you to do is empower them to take that next step and build those skills in their first year, second year, and beyond. All right, so that's it. There's my contact information. Jimmy Ellis. My email address is jellis@american.edu. I've had that thing for 12 years, and students think it's hilarious. They say jealous. I like it. I think it says jellies, but everyone says jealous. That's my email. And students are always welcome to email me. I'm always available for students. I'm a fierce prioritizer. And when a student needs a connection, they need a referral, they need an introduction, those kind of things are so easy for me to do. And those are things I prioritize over all else, because what are we here for? Is to make sure that students have what they need. So I'm always a resource for students. Again, I don't want to be the crutch. I don't want to be the constant go-to, but when students need it, I'm definitely here for them, and they can count on me and our team. All right, so I'll go ahead and stop the presentation and come back to the main screen.
Thank you so much, Jimmy, for that presentation. It was very insightful, and I want to call you Jellies from now on. So I just might do that. So I want to name that we have lots of questions that our parents and families submitted. So I'm going to try to get to as many as I can.
Yeah.
I want to start with major and minor planning. This is a three-parter. But when do students need to declare a major? How does AU work with students who are undeclared? And then how does a student switch majors?
Gotcha. So students that are undeclared work with in the first year, work with a particular segment of our first year advising team. We have two senior instructor advisors, two senior first year advisors that work with those students. If they're not already working with those individuals, one is Rachel Wu Pong, the other is Amanda Getz. Have them get in contact with me and I can make that connection. The other question about intent or declaring a major, that happens in the summer after the first year and beyond. That could happen then. And then Camille, what was the other piece?
What is the process to switch majors?
Oh, yes, consultation with your advisor, just letting them know that you want to do that and they'll make the adjustment for you. And then depending on where you are in the process, they can make an introduction to the other academic advisor. They can get coordinated and connected. And if they need to, as colleagues, they can make sure they're on the same page for that. That switch is also benefited by shared advising notes. Everyone uses the same system for that. And so that record of what students have done and interacted with will be in there as well. On the advising front, there's a couple questions about advising in the chat that that have been asked. There are some students that just unfortunately will experience advisor turnover, and regrettably will happen a couple times, and those are incredibly frustrating for me. And it can feel like you don't have a permanent advisor, someone you're associated with, etc. If your student is in that situation and they just need to just place their feet and just get settled and kind of restart, have them contact me. I'm happy to say, okay, let's take stock of where you've been, honor it, validate it, but then realize that, hey, you have a long journey ahead of you, and let's get you situated, and hopefully that you'll have a steady advising relationship going forward. Just to kind of disrupt that feeling of swirling around, I'm happy to spend 20, 30 minutes with them just to make sure that they're set and steady and then get them going again. I have another question in here, and this is one that I'm already working on. We have some students that are part of special programs, for example, our Global Scholars Program. and know that I have seen that question. It was actually, and those kind of things. I'm following up individually with the department and programs to make sure that we get the right advising the students. For example, Camille, we can see this, but for the family member that was talking about their student in the Global Scholar Advisor, I'm talking about that situation in particular. And so we'll be in touch with that student shortly. In fact, I connected with Janice Sabdumas today to make sure we have a game plan with her. And we're already working with the academic unit because the student is so advanced in credits that we want to make sure that they have the right kind of advising when they need it. So we're working on that as well.
Great, thank you. So we had quite a few questions around access to grades, academic progress. So a lot of families were curious just how they follow a student's academic progress.
Yeah.
I know one of the things I wanted to share is due to the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, AU can't actually disclose student records to anyone. That includes our parents and families as well. I know that's definitely a shift from what families might be used to in high school, but it's not really meant to discourage you from your student's education or your involvement, but really to kind of give your student a little bit more ownership of their academic journey. So I highly encourage you to speak with your student about the degree to which they want to share their educational records with you. Let's see. Just taking a look.
Hey, Camille, I wanted to summarize something. I talked about when things, like when students should think about things, especially in the first year. Here's how I would think about it. Right now, they should think about having as strong a first semester as possible academically. And so just focusing on the academics. As far as what they should be doing right now, they should be getting guidance for spring registration. And so just make sure they can feel comfortable there. For things like study abroad and internships, if they have questions about that, I would say give that a little bit of space and time. And in fact, let's prioritize that for early part of spring, in January and February, when there's nothing to do anyway, right? It's cold and everything else like that. Go to the Career Center at that time. Go visit a study abroad advisor at that time. And then I would leave that kind of off the table until they get through the fall. And in fact, over the winter break, make a game plan. Hey, what are the things you want to try to get done and conversation you want to have when you get back to campus, when things are a little bit slower? I would recommend doing that. So maybe January, February, have your first interactions with the Career Center, with study abroad. And if you do that, I think it gives students things to look forward to, versus feeling stressed of things that they have to do right now. And I would always kind of pull out those things that you're interested in, and just put them out as targets that they can drive towards and move towards, rather than things they have to do all at once. And so, for example, for a first-year student, study abroad and career, I would say make a plan for January and February to have those first conversations with those folks.
I'll also share that our office is going to be doing webinars on study abroad and the Career Center / job and internship search, both in February. I'm going to post our website in the chat so you can get a sneak preview of those, but I highly recommend you attend those sessions as well. Yeah. So we go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So we got another question from a parent or family member who shared that they were curious about, are the advisors fixed or can students try a different advisor if they feel like the fit wasn't good?
Yeah. So in the first year, the advisor assignment is fixed. I'm just say it's fixed. Now, is there some room to be able to work with that associate director of first year advising if there's just kind of an inability or to kind of move forward or discomfort? Potentially, I would say first and foremost, have a conversation with someone on our leadership team just about that. Know that we always want to keep the student's interest in mind, but we also want to respect and value the expertise that an advisor can bring to a relationship. In the first year, it's a little bit different, because it is a first year advising model. This lesson learned is especially important in the second year and beyond, because oftentimes advising is set around discipline. And so we want students to be able to accrue as much benefit as possible from that person's relationships with faculty, their connections to industry, their understanding of the curriculum. And so some of the kind of temperament or personality type disagreements we see sometimes, we want students to kind of push through or problem solve around, because there's so much value to working with someone that has that discipline expertise in the second year and beyond. If a student really gets stuck with their advisor and they're kind of in an impasse, that's where I want that student to seek out some resources, consult a director of an office, an associate director of an office, and just look for some options. But not as a first point. If you could have your students to have the courage to have the conversation with that advisor and say, hey, here are my kind of needs, or here are my expectations, and I've struggled in this kind of way. Can you help me understand? Like, those kind of hard conversations are productive to have. And for the most part, I know the spirit of the folks that I work with, in these various advising units, and I think that advising relationship is worth pursuing and investing in.
Thank you. We got a question from a parent who shared her daughter is so overwhelmed with biology and science, but her major is biochemistry.
Yeah.
Do you think she changed it already? Is it normal to just change the idea that followed her for a long time?
Is it normal? It is. It is. Students, but then what we want to do, just in consultation with the advisors, to figure out, is it cold feet and sometimes imposter syndrome? Sometimes just kind of on that realm of things, or is it more that this is a genuine realization and a realignment of their interests and things of that nature? I hope that your student consulted with their academic advisor, as they were thinking about making that change, because I think something we like to do with students is to keep options open. And so, hey, can we pause this and then be able to explore something else to see if there's an interest there, versus just pull the plug completely? Because you're right, students will often spend years thinking about what they want to major in, and they're pretty set on it, but then pretty quickly that can be disrupted. But as I pointed out, it's normal. Students are doing that before they arrive. So in the summer before they arrive, I would say I saw 15 to 20% of students were doing that right then. And then I showed you that another 20% did it in the first year heading into their second. So it is pretty typical and pretty normal. Now, the student loves science. There are ways to move through kind of a STEM experience that is less intensive in biology, or less intensive in math. So there are ways to explore, and we want to discuss options with your student if that's the case. Again, this is a conversation that is hard to have right now because of where we are with the advising period. But as they encounter their advisor, especially in their first year, it's good to bring that up and say, hey, can we have a schedule that gives me some options that I can explore? Can I take a pause in one area to explore another? And then when the dust settles a little bit, kind of the middle part of November, heading into the new year, have a longer conversation about that. And that's where the advisor could even refer students to some interest inventories to kind of figure out, where does your interest reside? Is it here? Is it somewhere else? And we could think about some resources to offer them at that time. Now, getting through hard stuff, that's the academic support. And so that's where I think it'd be useful to think about attending academic support, going to office hours, because even if your student is overwhelmed right now, they still have to finish strong so that they can pivot and have a lot of options available to them. And so encourage academic support and meet with the academic advisor, I think.
Thank you. We had a question about accommodations.
Okay.
Is there support and/or accommodations for students with ADHD? And if so, how and where is this support accessed?
Yeah, Camille, this is something that is a pretty straightforward, laid out process on the disability support website with accommodation support. I think providing that resource would be the way to go. Now, these kind of things take time to evaluate. And so at this point in the semester, depending on what the needs are and what availability is and ability to follow up with the student, accommodations for this semester could be possible. But for your student looking ahead, it's definitely something to be put in place for next semester and beyond. But they have a simple process, a 3-step process where they do an intake. they ask for information, they have a meeting, and then from there, with our disability access advisors, come up with exactly the right plan of support and accommodation that the university can offer. But like I said, it's not for certain that kind of major changes can happen this semester, given where we are. But it is for certain that if everything kind of syncs up and the need is there and our ability to provide support is there, that we can do that from the spring going forward.
Great. And then we'll take one last question. Someone asked, what is the process to switch schools?
Yeah, so for a first year student, there's not a huge pressure to do this because you're with this person that can advise across the different schools, but definitely let that interest be known, and then we can make that adjustment and then plan accordingly. And a school switch in the first year just happens within the context of first year advising. And then the same is kind of true in the second year and beyond. It's with your academic advisor. And so just get in contact with them, express your interest, talk through your options. And I mentioned earlier, they'll do it officially and administratively. And then if needed, we'll provide that bridge to the new academic advisor. And then, like I said before, there's a shared notes and advising system that all advisors have. And so that information gap can be filled quickly by that advising system. And then all that needs to be built up quickly is a new relationship. There's going to be a relationship gap because you're not going to know the advisor, they're not going to know you, but over the course of an advising appointment and getting to know them, you'll be able to make up that gap pretty quickly as well. At AU, the ability to switch majors is pretty frictionless. And in fact, it became even more so in the last academic year. AU has removed a lot of the GPA and course requirements to move from one major to the other. And so students now have a lot of freedom and flexibility to be able to move academic majors. There aren't restrictions, there aren't gates that they have to go through. These decisions now can be made just with the guidance of the advisor and say, hey, yes, you can do that, but let me tell you about the time and attention it's going to require in order to complete the degree in what you have to offer. And so students are making decisions based on their own academic journey versus restrictions that are preventing them to do it. And so we removed those. And I think that that ability to migrate between majors within our university has been well received in the last year.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I want to be mindful of our time. And thank you again, Jimmy, for spending time with our parents and families tonight. This has been a great experience. Any parting words you'd like to share?
No, just that it's always a pleasure talking with parents and families, and you know, everything that you encounter, that your student encounters, these are things that we can work on with them to solve. Even the stuff that's challenging or messy. The key is just to start a conversation, get connected, and hopefully this helps provide some of that wider context, but also positions me as someone that you could start with if you ever encounter a situation you feel like your student is stuck and doesn't know how to proceed. So thank you for supporting your student. You're a big part of this puzzle. Navigating academics is certainly something that happens on our campus, but it's something that happens with your encouragement as well. So I appreciate your investment. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll share the recording just as soon as it's available. Have a great night.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.